All right, so we are live, and I am just making us live as well on Instagram. There it goes. Okay, so I have mentioned this before. I am infamous that if someone dares me something, then unless it's completely obnoxious and crazy, I tend to go for it. So I was dared to tell the never-ending saga, the story of the never-ending saga of my ceiling that came tumbling down. So about in December of 2022, California was going through some massive, massive hurricanes. I mean, some crazy ass stuff. And I was getting ready to get on a uh, train to head to San Diego because I was going to attend a writers conference, a writers coffee house, something I do, I don't know, every other month, something like that. And my cat had just run out of the room, and all of a sudden I hear I'm upstairs. I hear downstairs this massive crashing. And of course, my first thought was, what the hell did this cat do this time? Right? Because as we all know, anyone who actually owns a cat knows that they can be kind of, all over the place. They can do some damage. So I pick my stuff up. I go downstairs. I'm like, okay, I'm going to teach this cat a lesson. And I go into my front living room, and that's when I see it. My front ceiling, right where my Christmas tree was at the time, had just crashed in, and it was literally raining in my living room. And I was just like, oh my God, what do I do? So I'm like running around. I'm trying to figure out like how do I cover things up? How do I control all this damage? And I'm like putting plastic wherever I can. And I call my husband because my husband's a musician and he was traveling for work. And I was like, I told him what happened, and he was like, did you call the insurance company? Well, that honestly, it had never occurred to me to call the insurance company. So he was like, go call the insurance company, let them know it's happening, get video of this, make sure you've got everything nailed. And I was like, okay, all right, yep, no problem. So I go and I call the insurance company, starts with a U and ends with an A. And I want to say I spent a solid hour just calling and calling and calling, because every time I call, I'd get sent to like a switchboard, basically an automated switchboard. And I would, it was like, if this was about your car, press 1. If it's about your, house, press 2. If this is for this, there were no options for like, if your ceiling came tumbling down, press 5. So I finally figured out, seriously, after about a solid hour of calling and calling and calling, I finally figured out how to get to their emergency section. So I call emergency, and the emergency section says, well, like, are you injured? Is anyone in your home injured? Can you still live in your house? And I'm like, well, yeah, I can, my house is still livable technically, but like it's raining in my living room, and I'm, trying to figure out, how do I send these people videos of what's happened? And, basically their perspective was, well, if you're still alive, you're not in the ER, and your whole house hasn't, basically fallen in, then then you're fine. You're good. We don't want to hear from you right now. Well, I'm like horrified because I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? And we end up in this almost like a debate. So she says, well, send us images of the damage, and then we'll take it from there. Well, I immediately start asking, well, can I get some kind of coverage over my roof? And she's like, well, why would you do that? the damage is in your ceiling. And I said, well, right. The damage is with the ceiling, but the damage on the ceiling, which now has caused damage on our floor because it basically just ripped up our flooring, um, is all caused from the hurricanes that are going on right now that caused damage to my roof. And she says, well, you have no proof of that. And I was like, okay. And she says, well, how do you even know that this wasn't caused by plumbing? And I said, because there's no plumbing there. There's literally, it's roof right there. There's not a bathroom over it. There's not a, kitchen. There's nothing that would have any kind of water that could have like plumbing that could have burst and then caused this damage. So she's like, okay, well, we'll send people out. They call them adjusters to look at everything later on. So I run around and I cover up everything that I can and I clean up as much as I can. And at that point, I'm just, thankful that I'm not hurt. No one in my home is hurt. My cat's not hurt. And I thought, okay, I will take it from here. Well, I naively thought, okay, so I called them, so they'll have people reaching out to us immediately. I then spend the next week calling and calling and calling because as far as it turned out that there was so many houses that had been damaged by the hurricanes in Southern California that from their perspective, if no one was like dead or dying or the house wasn't, completely caved in, then this was not a priority. So with that, I'm going to leave you with that, with my hole in the ceiling, my floors that are completely blown away, and my roof that has a hole in it and that the insurance company will not acknowledge. I'll leave you with those thoughts, and I will catch up with you next time and tell you the next little bit of this insane saga.